I mean, you're right. It is quite funny in a way because there are a few sort of, wide-eyed, open-mouthed, oh my goodness. But I think we can soon burst that bubble. And we talk about how I was not very good at maths and how there's so many words in the English language. There's more than 1 million words. It's still the most spoken language in the world, even though some people speak it as a second language, still the most spoken. And so if you've got over 1 million words, your writing never needs to be dull for you to write or your teachers to read it. And we do that trying to spark off the imagination. So I talk about films, who likes to go to the cinema and watch a film on television, which is almost everybody, and that's a big treat for a lot of children. But that's, you're seeing the pictures that would have gone with the words. Well, when you read a book, you're seeing your own pictures. So you're kind of making your own movie. Somebody's given you the script, but you're seeing it in your head, which of course is why if you read a book and then go and see a movie, it can be very disappointing because it doesn't match whatever you saw in your head. So writing is kind of making your own movie and then translating that into words so that you want other people to see what's been happening in your head, but bearing in mind that they're actually all going to see their own thing.
Okay, everyone, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. I have another great author on the show today who has a fondness for tanks, which I haven't ever done before. Also, she's an author, which is great. And she does a lot of great work with writing for children and lots of great stuff. And she travels quite a lot, and we'll touch a little bit on that as well today. So excited to have Jenny here on the podcast. I'm so thrilled to meet another great author and talk all things writing and introduce you as a listening audience to another great author. She's here. Jenny, welcome to Living the Next Chapter. Thanks,
Dave. Thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Excellent. Let everybody know, Jenny, where you are currently, as of today, in this big world of ours.
I am currently in England. I'm in the county of Surrey, which is just kind of inside the M25. So from outside, I can look down the hill and see across London.
Wow, beautiful. And tomorrow, you're going to be somewhere totally different.
Tomorrow, I'll be spending way too much time at the airport, I expect. I go to Heathrow and then fly to Nairobi tomorrow.
So for somebody in Canada, and myself, speaking for myself, that seems like two very distant worlds away. Just to be, I'm going to Nairobi. And like, I try to put that into my perspective where I am in this part of the world and go, okay, well, that's not too bad from where you are. But it's amazing how many different countries are so close together in that part of the world where you can travel and experience so much. So you do a lot of traveling. Is that right?
That is right. Yeah, we spent quite a lot of time in South Africa. In fact, the whole reason for being in Nairobi is because my husband, who is king of the special deals, managed to get a flight that goes through Nairobi and then a couple of days on through Vic Falls to get to Cape Town, which was cheaper than a direct flight to Cape Town. But only on that particular day, the days either side is more than twice the price. So because I have a significant birthday this year, excuse me, which is where the tank comes in, we're going to go and do some fun stuff on the way this time.
Awesome. And I know people are curious. They're like, you can't let that go past. The tank thing, the reference to the tank, Dave, what are you talking about? You did something recently and something that I've never done. I would love to do. But you went for a ride and drove, not just rode, you drove a tank. Come on.
I did. It was wonderful. It's driving a tank has been on my bucket list for years and years. And a number of years ago, I drove some really nice big vehicles on an airfield, Farnborough Airfield, which is also in Surrey, which was for sponsoring, raising money for a Fireman's Benevolent Fund or something. So I drove a double-decker bus, an articulated lorry, a World War II vehicle, those big cranes that they use to get the lorries that break down on the highway. Yeah. Whole bunch of stuff, fire engine, police car, a lot. It was really fun, but they didn't have a tank. And that's been a dream of mine for a long time. And my two elder sisters kindly went online and found an experience where you could drive a tank, which they've given to me for my significant birthday this year. And I kind of cashed it in, or whatever you do with it, just a couple of months ago when I first spoke to you. And and it was great fun. It really was.
Nice. That sounds like like such an experience that, again, not a lot of people have. Were you nervous at all? Jumping in behind the controls and
And
all
I
these
wasn't.
buttons and levers? Oh, okay, good.
I was just super excited. I think
Nice.
there's quite a few photos, and I look like the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland. I've just got a grin
Little smiles.
from ear to ear. I just could not stop smiling. It was a total ball. Yeah, I loved it.
You didn't shoot anything, did you?
No,
with
I
this
didn't
tank?
shoot.
No, okay, good.
No,
Okay,
no,
good.
not this time.
Good. You didn't cause an incident at all? That's good.
That
All
I'm
right.
aware of. I mean, you are in a very
Not
big
that you're-
field, to be fair. So damage limitation is, up there.
Okay, good. Yeah. And you came home safe, so that's all a win.
All
Well
good.
done.
All good.
If I need a tank driver, I'm calling you first. Okay,
Excellent.
just so you know.
I'd love to be there.
Okay, it could be your part-time job. Good, awesome. Put that on your business card. That's great. On top of everything else you could fit on a business card, you're also an author. What was your starting point as an author? Why did you pursue this? Why is it so important to you?
Golly, good question. I think I'm somebody who has always loved books, always loved stories. I grew up in a house where there was an abundance of books, children's books and adults, different genres. And my dad used to read to us in the winters. After Sunday lunch, he would read a chapter of a book. And we went through all of the Narnia series. We went through, some of your listeners may know, E. Nesbit, famous English author who wrote things like The Treasure Seekers and The Phoenix and the Comet. And Patricia St. John's Treasures of the Snow. We had all this. And Dad did the voices and, he did the whole thing, which was great. And I think I was quite captivated by that. I learned to read very young. In fact, I don't even remember learning to read. I think by the time I went to play school, so probably at age 4 even, I could read. So
Wow.
We have in this country, I don't know if you have in Canada, but we have a whole series of books called Ladybird Books, which is a publisher that had little hardback, sort of A5 type size books for children with well-loved tales, all the fairy tales, Cinderella, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, Rapunzel, blah, 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 Dick Whittington.
Yeah.
And I love those. I remember reading those at my infant school, it would have been, or that sort of preschool time, and absolutely loved them. And I've always been a words person. I'm pretty rubbish at maths. I'm not a numbers person. So words did captivate me, and I loved to write. I loved that feeling of just filling a page with words and creating worlds and stories and characters and adventures, whether that was at school or at home. So I would make my own books at home and do that. But the older you get, I think the more you realize actually writing a book is actually quite a big deal. It's not quite so easy as just, scribbling away when you're at school. And so I started with some other things. I used to write a column actually for a local newspaper in Hampshire, another county in the south of England. And I did that for 12 years before we started to spend more time in South Africa. And then I kind of changed what I was doing. It wasn't appropriate for me to carry that on if I wasn't living in that town anymore. It made no sense. It wasn't fair. So I passed that on and had to have a whole rethink. My children, I've got 4 children, they'd grown and flown by then. And so it was time to have a rethink of, I've got more time, I've got more space. What shall I do? What shall I write now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what led you to write for children then?
I spent, I'm sorry, I've got a frog in my throat.
See.
I spent the last 2 years before we spent more time in South Africa working in a primary school in Wiltshire, yet another county in southern England. And I realized that a lot of the kids were finding it tough, quite intimidating to read a whole book. I found that some of the stories on the shelves were quite dark in their theme, if I'm honest. And I thought, I'm not sure I'd be too chuffed about my children reading these books. And for a lot of them, reading is a chore. You have to tick the box to say you've read this tonight. It's not reading for pleasure as such. But I hadn't particularly intended to write for children to begin with. I was in Cape Town And my eldest daughter at that time worked in frontline child protection, social work, which is not a fun environment, and was having quite a challenging time, I would say. And being 6,000 miles away, I just felt like, what can I do? I can't hug her. I can't take her for coffee. We can't fill ourselves with ice cream or, any of those things. And then I thought, you know what? I will write her story like the ones that we used to read together when she was little. And see if I can write a story to just make her laugh or make her smile or just lift the mood, So that's what I did. And then those of your listeners who are parents know, if you do something for one child, you then have to do it for all the children, don't you? Because you've got to be fair. So inevitably, I then had to write 3 more stories. And they were fun stories with quirky characters and ridiculous situations. And that was a book that it was a book because I put those 4 stories together and just had it printed online. And then I gave it to them on Christmas Eve, which I think is a tradition they have in Iceland, actually. You give one another a book on Christmas Eve so you can cozy up and read it before Christmas Day. And I just said to them, you all had your own stories. Now you can read each other's. But to see it actually there printed, even in that format, a little something went off in my brain that actually this could be a collection. If you write some more, 4 is not enough, but 6 to 8, depending how long the stories are, this could be a decent children's collection of stories. So that's what I did. So I then set myself far more intentionally to write some more stories and pick the best, put them there and go and look for a publisher. And I'm very fortunate that I found one. So that was The Magnificent Moustache and Other Stories, which nobody can see except you.
There you go. I like that.
And I began to go into primary school with those stories, and off the back of them, take creative writing lessons, which I just found enormous fun. And of course, for children, having a visitor come in, everything, wakes up and it's just fresh and different and a bit more exciting. So I did that, and then thought, you know what? I can see that there are topics which come up fairly cyclically in primary school. Maybe I could write some stories which are a little bit more geared to those particular themes. So I wrote another 6 in Charlie Peach's Pumpkins and Other Stories, which deal with things like, Charlie Peach's Pumpkin is about people who are a little bit different from us, a very kind of an eccentric English gentleman in a village who wants to grow melons really and ends up growing pumpkins. But the intern from the local paper who's assigned to cover the story as the pumpkins grow is an American. And Charlie Peach thinks that he doesn't like Americans because they use funny words for things like they say cookie instead of biscuit and sidewalk instead of pavement and pants when they mean trousers. We some pants something very different here. But once they connect, and he finds that Michelle's grandpa used to grow pumpkins, and they have a strong connection, and it's really quite a lovely story, I think, about how they realize that we think people are different, but actually they're not so very different. Once you connect with individuals, we just end up putting them in a lump or in a group like that. So that's that story, and then there's one about intergenerational relationships, where a grandson tries to save his granddad from embarrassment because he's invited his friends to come and have a wine tasting. But unfortunately, the invitations haven't printed properly. So instead of saying the 18th, they've come out as the 13th. So all the guests turn up a week early, and Sean is the only one at home. So he decides to sort of help his granddad out by pretending he's a sommelier and putting something together from the ingredients he finds in the kitchen to see if he can wing it, basically. And actually does a pretty good job, I must say. There's a story about recycling. There's a story about bullying. There's a story about what do you do when you're bored. But they're not preachy stories in that way. They're not didactic in any way. They have some very silly characters, and it is a little bit ridiculous and fun. But I really believe that children need that. They are faced with so many difficult, challenging situations, and in this generation more than ever, I think. So much time spent on screens, so much access to potentially very stressful as well as potentially harmful, I guess, material. That to have somewhere that is kind of a refuge and an escape from all of that, where imagination can really take off. I am all for that, and I would encourage that. I mean, I've been in schools where children say to me, well, but I don't have an imagination. Yes, I don't have one.
Wow.
Well, you do. It's just a bit sleepy at the moment. We just need to try and wake it up.
Wake it up. I've now discovered that I've been saying pants instead of trousers and sidewalks instead of pavement.
Yeah.
So my whole world has been shattered now, thanks to you.
Cookie instead
now
of
I'm going to have to go,
biscuit.
right? Yeah. So there we go. So now I got a lot of homework to do. I like that. Can you solve this for me? Is it niche or is it niche?
Niche.
I think it's niche, right? Yeah, because I battle with my American friends here, and they like to say niche all the time, and I'm like, it's niche. So, anyways, so I stand with you on that one. So Excellent. There we go. We have something in common.
Good.
Right there we go. That's good.
Start somewhere.
What's the target age range for your books?
These are for 7 to 11-year-olds, which in the UK now that is now called Key Stage 2. When I was at school, that was junior school. I don't know what your equivalent is.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's
that'd be our primary school, we would call it here. And
the top end of primary school.
Yeah.
A lot of our schools now have infants and primary kind of together. So, before they go to secondary school or high school.
Talk a little bit more about being in school, in class with students, and what that's like as an author. I think a lot of children's authors miss an opportunity to take their books into the schools and share it with kids. I know that when I was little, I had an author come to my classroom, and we all sat on the floor, and they sat on a chair, and they read to us from their book. And I thought they were a superstar because they had a book. And I'm like a kid, and I don't know how that happens, because I was so curious to know, how does a person make a book? Like, this is a star in our school. So talk about how that kind of played out for you. What was exciting and fun for you to be an author in a school?
I mean, you're right. It is quite funny in a way, because there are a few sort of, wide-eyed, open-mouthed, oh my goodness. But I think we can soon burst that bubble. And we talk about how I was not very good at maths, and how there's so many words in the English language. There's more than 1 million words. It's still the most spoken language in the world, even though some people speak it as a second language, still the most spoken. And so if you've got over 1 million words, your writing never needs to be dull for you to write or your teachers to read it. And we do that trying to spark off the imagination. So I talk about films, who likes to go to the cinema and watch a film on television, which is almost everybody, and that's a big treat for a lot of children. But that's, you're seeing the pictures that would have gone with the words. Well, when you read a book, you're seeing your own pictures. So you're kind of making your own movie. Somebody's given you the script, but you're seeing it in your head, which of course is why if you read a book and then go and see a movie, it can be very disappointing because it doesn't match whatever you saw in your head. So writing is kind of making your own movie and then translating that into words so that you want other people to see what's been happening in your head, but bearing in mind that they're actually all going to see their own thing as well. So the great thing, what I always enjoyed about this part of the curriculum is that it's not a right or wrong answer. Maths is very clearly either you got that sum right or you got that sum wrong. Whereas in English language and literature, writing about things, unless you've really missed the point of the story, which is unlikely, you don't get it wrong in that way. And I love that. It means there's lots of room, lots of wiggle room, So we play some interactive games. I my degree is theatre and television and that kind of thing. So not hugely useful in some respects, but in terms of getting imagination going, it can be quite helpful. So we play some games with that and kind of tell mini stories. So I start them off with a scenario, and I just put your hand up if you saw it. So I was in County Antrim in Northern Ireland last week with 2-year groups. I had 41 children, and I'd say, close your eyes. Okay, there's a lady by a river. See what you see. Hands up if she's got long hair. Okay. Hands up if she's wearing a red coat. hands up if there are trees, hands up if there are, other people around. So we just start to unpack something, and nobody's got it right and nobody's got it wrong. They see what they see, which I think is really important. And then we just take it a little bit further, and still with their eyes shut, I start to tell a story or set the scene. And I say, I'm going to ask you a question. If I touch you on the shoulder, tell me what you see in your movie in your head. Again, it's not right, it's not wrong, but don't try to be clever, because it's all, if as soon as you try to be clever, it all goes wrong. So we did one where somebody's walking down the street, they're coming towards you. Okay, what are they carrying? Okay, what can you hear? What else can you see? So we just draw things out, and then something else happens. Somebody's walking the other way, somebody's walking with a dog. What happens when they meet? Blah, blah, blah. Just get them to tell their own story. So they tell a mini story. We do another one where they have to get on a train. They're at a train station and look in your pocket. There's a ticket. Take your ticket out. You've got to get on. Who else is in the carriage? Where are you going? Who are you meeting? All that stuff. And it just draws it out a bit. And then we do the lesson that I've taught the most, because I cunningly thought there's 6 stories in each book. So if I have 6 lessons for each one, then I could potentially go back to a school over and over again without having to repeat myself. This could be a really good idea. But I've actually only so far still only taught 2 of the lessons. And the main one is that the Magnificent Moustache story, in which a very unlikely gentleman called Lord Clanville Smythe is going to enter the first ever national moustache competition at the local county fair. Or that was the intention, until a rather nasty accident in his wife's rose garden with some secateurs. And alas, the moustache is not all it once was. What are they going to do?
Oh, no.
That won't be resolved. So we do that. And so I read them part of the story, and then we work on building their own character. So I often ask them, well, what do you think happens next? What might happen? Because people can take it in a completely different direction, which is a fun thing to do. And we give them, what do? I have envelopes. Kids love getting things out of envelopes, or breaking a code, or, like a lucky dip out of a hat, finding something. So I have envelopes with names in, and I talk about how the name of a character can tell you something about a character. So they pick a name, and they have to write down or think of 3 things. They do it in pairs usually. Write down 3 things about that character just from their name. Make it up. It's not right, it's not wrong. It's what you see. Great. And then we come around again. And now this is the job that person does. So think about, do they like their job? Do they not like their job? How about if you were to interview them? What sort of things would they say? What do they do at the weekend? What do they like to eat? How old are they? Or we, bit by bit, piece it together. And they're then given another slip of paper from an envelope, which puts that character in a situation. And they have to, in the light of what they've already built around that character, they then explain what might happen in that situation, how they would be. And there, I could take another stage. There is another envelope that we very seldom get to because we always run out of time, which is suddenly something happens. How are you going to tie it all up now? And it's a mini story. And then they get to share with each other. And we read the rest of the story. Everybody gets a moustache so they can, a stick-on moustache so they can all be part of the National Moustache Competition. My book wears its own moustache because it's been so many times. And it's just a lot of fun, really. And it's not a pressured environment. It's just have some fun putting it together, think around things, and see what pops out. And it's different every time, which is great. And the other lesson I've taught from it is the Red Dragon of Wales, which we've made into a poetry lesson. And of course here, I don't know, in Canada or the States, we celebrate World Book Day. If it's World Book Day, I assume you guys have it as well. As well as a national and a World Poetry Day. Well, here on World Book Day, the children dress up as characters from a book and go into school like that. So I've done that. I did a little village school in Oxfordshire a couple of years ago for World Book Day. And it was fabulous, the way that they're dressed up. The small ones had whole outfits like somebody was in the Gruffalo, which is a popular book here. I'm saying that maybe. I don't know. Uh,
Yeah.
all sorts of things, Willy Wonka, or
Yep.
just a fantastic array of characters, real carnival characters. And so everybody's then open to talking about what they read and writing stories.
Well, it's good when you can encourage kids and children to understand that reading's not a homework assignment, that you have to come home and do a task, check the task off the list. It's not a to-do list item. It's more of a pleasure item. It's more of a expanding your world. Again, talking about your imagination. It taps into things. And I think if we just regulate, and put reading as just a task, I think that's where some people fall out of love with reading.
Absolutely.
They just don't understand. It feels like one more thing on the list, right, to do.
Miserable.
So, yeah, encouraging them like you are is a great way to help them fall in love.
And there's a lot of good
books.
books out there. It's just if you can complete a short story in one sitting, I think that's very satisfying, which is why I continued doing it that way. I had some ideas for a longer book, but actually there's a definitely a space in the market for short stories. And that's very accessible for that age group. And if they can be fun stories and still feed their imagination, then hooray. I think that's great. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased, but I do think that's great.
Is there any struggle for you as an author to write at an age level that would appreciate your books? Are you having to kind of change how you as an adult would approach a subject or a topic? You have to kind of think differently?
I think it definitely helped me to be working with that age group when I was in school. That's always an age group that I've enjoyed. I think once children get to secondary school, certainly here, you start to get a vibe creeping in that it's not cool to work, and I find that very tedious, to be honest. I want to be with people who are enthusiastic and who want to engage. Yeah. And younger ones, obviously different level of vocabulary and all of that. And I've used some hard vocabulary in my books. I haven't shied away from that. I don't think children enjoy being patronized. I certainly didn't enjoy a condescending tone in any book that I've ever read. And and also I think children can be stretched. They can work out what a word means from the sense of the rest of the sentence and the general where the story is going. And I always say here, you must also know Beatrix Potter books. Beatrix Potter was a book that I grew up with. Well, she was like soporific. And that's a very early book in the Flopsy Bunnies story. And I feel like, well, if Beatrix Potter is a venerated authoress of yesteryear who's using words like that, I think it's okay to, use some harder words. Now, not everybody agrees with that. I have to say. And there are, you have keywords, I think that's what they're called here anyway, in reading schemes for children to pursue. And I get that as well. And there's a place for that, and it is important, and that helps them with spelling as well. But again, the more you read, the better you will spell, because your brain will start to see whether you think a word looks right or not, because you've seen it written down so often in the books you've read. Something will click and go, that and it doesn't look right. So... Yeah.
I love a new word that I come across when I'm reading. I'm like, I've never used that word in my day-to-day speech with anyone. And now I'm like, I feel just like 1% smarter because I've got a new word to add to my list. Somebody said, one of my English teachers back in the day taught us that you could take a word and use it in a regular conversation and sentence more than 3 times. Yeah. It's yours for life.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, well, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's true.
I think the word she shared was delved. And I'm like, I've never used the word delved before.
Delving into
you're going to delve into something, right? And I'm like, well, now just that example of her getting in front of us and telling us that, I can't get that word delve out of my head now just because of her. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting.
That's great.
So I love growing our vocabulary.
She made that impression on you as well. And having good teachers makes a massive difference. I actually, in the dedication that I put in the second children's books, in Charlie Peach's Pumpkins, is dedicated to 2 of my English teachers who just encouraged me to write. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to jump back. You said your after Sunday meal, your father would read to you.
Yeah.
And how that's such a great memory for you. In our busy world as parents, as we're addicted to our phones and everything going on in the world and our quality of time with family seems to be getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Talk a little bit about the power of reading to our kids. Why is it still important, and why should we do it more often?
Well, for one thing, it's very interactive. It's a way of building joint memories, common memories, and a lot of those memories serve as glue in family dynamics. I remember when you all remember it together. I think that's really important. It was a great help for us that we had not a rule as such, but just a habit. We would eat around the dining table. Now, I know that there are houses these days which don't even own a dining table. People eat on their laps in front of the TV, and that's not going to really help from that point of view. So being around the table, having a common focus is great. If you choose a book, which is, obviously you've got to choose an interesting book that's going to hold the attention. Well, we were 3 girls in my family, and we're each 2 years apart, and the youngest of the 3. So Dad did well, I think, to find books that would engage all of us across that 2, 4, 6 year age range. And it's important because you get to talk about stuff. You get to come across challenges and see how the character resolves them, or conquers a fear, or engages in an activity which stretches them, or has a problem which perhaps is reflected in your own life in some shape or form, and just finding, they solved it, they got through it. How did they do that? Is there any relevance of that for me? And the characters who have the qualities that you would like your children to have, it's a way of them kind of getting out without it being told in a very, you must do this or you should be like this kind of things. You can find heroes and heroines within a narrative, a fiction, or even non-fiction, about heroes, about explorers perhaps, or people who have made breakthroughs in the medical field, or something that captures what interests your child or your children. That may give you a clue with the sort of things that would be worth reading together. It gives you something to talk about as well, because across the generations, it becomes increasingly isolating, I think, because, interests vary and people are busy, as you say, and we're often on screens. But to put them down and talk about something that is here in front of us right now, and what do you think about this? And how about that? And were you surprised that they reacted that way? How are they going to sort out this conflict with this other character? What would you do? What would I do? Gosh, just bring it into real life where you can. I mean, there are obviously some fantastical things in fiction, but just to ground it in what's happening in life, I think it's really helpful for children. And because that way you become their ally as well. You can become their ally, you become their advocate, you help them to process their thoughts. And for a lot of children now, the sort of big feelings that are going on, trying to express those feelings is difficult. They don't always have the words for it. But if there's somebody in a book did something where they had some big feelings, whether it was anger or frustration or excitement or fear, anxiety, it just makes those things more approachable and less huge, more manageable. It's kind of a way of equipping children to talk confidently, to ask questions, to think. And I'm a big fan of teaching children to think rather than just always telling them this is this and that is that.
Yeah.
We say that's what we want our children to do. But I know certainly in the adult world, debate, I have to be careful, but measured debate is something now we're seeing less and less of, because people are just being polarized. So if you don't agree with me, you're wrong, rather than let's talk about it. Let's unpack that. Why would you think that? Why do I think this? Oh, maybe somewhere in the middle, lots of potential.
Yeah. We need more of that. And I love the idea that an adult can display a passion for reading, a passion for music, a passion for art, whatever, how that can kind of feed down to your children.
Sure.
And influence them as they look to you as a model.
Yeah.
And they see you enjoying something, which could tend to lead them to want to enjoy it as well.
Absolutely.
So demonstrated by reading to them,
Yeah.
and show them how much you love it.
Yeah, because parents, we are models for our children, and it's and children will copy what you do rather than what you say, just as we all know to our. Oh dear, yeah, shame.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's how it is. So if they see that you, like as you say, Dave, with a passion for reading and you enjoy reading, that's okay, and it is cool, because until they're a certain age, children believe parents are fairly infallible. So, maybe we should make the most of that before they realize it's not true.
So, yeah, keep up that facade as long as possible.
And they're like, oh my
right?
gosh,
Yeah.
you're not human.
Perfect. Yeah, no, we're not. Okay, so before we go, and I know you got packing to do, you got to get ready for your big trip tomorrow. Tell us where we're going to go to connect with you. We have people that are now interested. They want to come buy the books. We have people listening around the world as well. So where we're going to get the books, and as well, how do we connect with you as an author, as you globetrot around the world? How do we reach out to you and speak to you as a reader? Would love to know how to connect with you.
Oh, thank you. Well, that's great. I had the children's books. I also have 2 faith-related books, and all 4 of those books can be purchased on the various platforms online. So from the big corporate that we kind of love to hate, you can get it from those guys. You can order from your local bookshop. You should be able to get them. Magnificent Moustache and Charlie Peach are both available as ebooks, as are the other 2 books, Spiritual Feasting and Polished Arrows, are available as ebooks. Spiritual Feasting is based on Psalm 23:5, is it possible to feast with God when life serves dishes that are bitter and sour? And that is available as an Audible book as well, so you can have me reading it to you, should you wish.
Wow.
So that is from the usual places as well. If you want to connect with me, I actually have 2 Facebook pages, because I just have one that I had from whenever it was that Facebook started, and one that is particularly for writing, which is just Jenny Sanders, author, possibly Jenny Sanders, writer. Just check out. There'll be a picture of me, and it's the same picture on X, Jenny H. Sanders. I'll be Jenny H. Sanders, and on Instagram I'm Jenny H, because there are other Jenny Sanderses in the world. So I'm there, and I'm a little bit on Threads, but I hadn't really got the hang of that, to be honest, which is the new.
Yeah.
So, but you can find me. You can find me on any of those places. Just have a little search about, and you'll find me. Or even just Google the books. If you Google the books, that'll take you to those pages.
Good. We'll have links for all that in the show notes so people can follow through and come and support you. And I'm reminding everyone to leave a great review when you buy books, so that the authors can benefit from more people coming to see your reviews and read your thoughts on the book. So please do that. My podcast is Living the Next Chapter, so I have to ask, as we close off, and as you get back to packing and getting ready for your trip, how are you, Jenny, living your next chapter?
Well, I'm living in Africa for the next couple of months, and hoping to find another little space to do some more writing. I would like to write another collection of children's stories. That would be good. I've been writing for some online magazines. I've done some radio things and some Bible guide notes, which come out next year. And the year after that, they write a long way ahead. So, and some radio things as well. So I'm hoping that that's all in the next chapter. But my very most immediate next chapter, I hope, will be taking a breath and enjoying their significant birthday. Those ones that come around every 10 years. And I had a lovely time with some of my family last night in London, celebrating, which was great. And I will be doing something with friends in Cape Town in a couple of weeks as well.
Wow. Amazing. Good. Enjoy that significant birthday.
Thank you so much.
I'm sure your 30th birthday is going to be a blast. For me, I do the anniversary of my birthday now. I don't celebrate my birthday. I do the anniversary of my birthday.
Oh, okay.
So it's like the 20th anniversary of my ex-birthday, right? So that's how I do it.
That's a genius way of doing it. I think you might be onto
it. You may have to try that. Anyway, safe travels to you and your family and everything as you do all this. And looking forward to seeing what comes out in the future. Come back. I'd love to hear you come back and share with the next part of your journey and catch us up on your books and everything you're doing so we can still stay in love with you as an author. Thank you for making time for us, Jenny.
Thanks for having me. I've loved it. Thanks so much. I'd love to come in.
Hey, thanks for being here for the Living the Next Chapter podcast. So glad to have you as part of our family of listeners. There's a seat for you just here on Living the Next Chapter, and I'm so happy that you have listened to all the way to the end. Wow, you are now my new bestie. I want to let you know that I host 7 other podcasts on top of Living the Next Chapter. Yep, 8 total. One of them is called the How To Podcast series. If you are thinking, you know what, Dave, this podcast thing seems like a lot of fun, well, I'll give you a secret. It is. It's a great, amazing, fun time where you can get to meet great people, get your word out there, promote your book, promote what your coaching program, whatever you're doing. Podcasting is great. And if you want to learn how to do this, what you're hearing right now, head over to howtopodcast.ca and look up the How to Podcast series on YouTube, whatever app you're listening on. You'll find me there. And I'd love for you to come listen to how to do this. And if you're interested and have questions on how to podcast, reach out to me at howtopodcast.ca. Thank you for listening. Talk soon.